Boyfriend is mad at me for not telling him about an abortion I had a decade ago. My boyfriend 28M, let's call him Zach, and I 28F have known each other since we were kids. We grew up together, went to the same schools, and eventually started dating in high school. Back then, things were great between us, but when it came time to graduate and figure out what we wanted to do with our lives, things shifted. I ended up getting accepted into a college that was far away, while Zach wanted to stay closer to home. It made sense for us to break up. We both agreed we wanted to have the freedom to experience college fully and explore new opportunities without the weight of a long-distance relationship holding us back. So we parted ways. But here's where it gets complicated. Not long after I moved away for school, maybe in the first week, I started feeling really sick. At first, I thought it was just the stress of starting a new chapter, but it turned out to be something entirely different. I went to see a doctor, and that's when I found out I was pregnant. I was completely overwhelmed. I mean, I had just started college, I was away from home, and I wasn't ready for this kind of responsibility at 18. After thinking it over and considering all my options, I decided that the best thing for me at the time was to have an abortion. It wasn't an easy decision, but I knew it was the right one for me in that moment. Here's where I made a decision that's now come back to haunt me.
I didn't tell Zach.
Honestly, at that time, I never thought we'd end up back together or even be a part of each other's lives again. I figured we'd both move on, and there wasn't any point in bringing it up. I just wanted to put the experience behind me and not make it a big deal. Maybe that was the wrong choice, but I was young and scared. I didn't know how to handle everything. Fast forward to 3 years ago, I finished my grad program, moved back to my hometown, and ended up running into Zach again. It was like no time had passed between us. We started talking, hanging out, and before long, we were dating again. Things between us have been great ever since. We've grown a lot since high school, and I really thought we were solid. But last month, everything changed. We were out with a group of friends just hanging out and drinking. The conversation eventually turned to the topic of abortion, specifically all these new bans and restrictions that were being talked about in the news. One of my friends opened up about her own experiences, mentioning she'd had 2 abortions. Without thinking, I blurted out that I'd had one as well. It wasn't something I had planned to reveal in that moment. It just slipped out. It didn't even register to me at first how Zach might react. When we got home that night, Zach immediately asked me about what I'd said. He was upset, and he wanted to know everything. So I told him the full story about what happened back when I first started college. I tried to explain why I didn't tell him at the time, how I never thought we'd end up together again, and how I didn't want it to become an issue between us. But Zach was furious. He couldn't believe I had made that decision without telling him. He kept saying it was our baby, and that I should have at least given him the chance to know, or be involved. He felt like I had taken away his right to make a choice, or even have a say in what happened. We argued for what felt like hours. Zach kept repeating how hurt he was that I'd kept this from him for so long, and no matter what I said, it didn't seem to make things better. Eventually, he left the house to cool off, and I was left sitting there, questioning everything. When he came back later, things were still tense. We've barely talked since. It feels like we're just living in the same space, passing each other like strangers. Every time I try to bring it up, the conversation ends up feeling cold and awkward. At one point, Zach asked me if I would have ever told him about the abortion if it hadn't come up that night with our friends. I had to be honest with him. I told him that no, I probably wouldn't have brought it up because it happened so long ago, and I didn't think it would matter at this point. That just made him even angrier. He felt like I was dismissing something that was important to him, and now I don't know what to do. I feel like I've ruined everything, but at the same time, I don't know how I could have handled it any differently back then. Now, I'm stuck trying to figure out where we go from here. Zach hasn't really spoken to me in a meaningful way since this all came out, and I'm worried that this is something we might not be able to recover from. I don't know if we can repair the damage that's been done, or if he'll ever be able to forgive me for keeping this from him. It feels like everything between us has changed, and I have no idea how to fix it.